Namaste everyone. I welcome you all to today's Yes Talk titled Attitude Towards Parents and Elders. Our guest speaker today is Acharya Navneet ji. I would like to share a quick introduction for him. Acharya Navneet is a scholar of Vedanta who works with underprivileged children through a pan India project, All India Movement for Seva. We welcome you, Acharya ji. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Namaste.
Namaste. Looking forward to an interesting session. Over to you, sir.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunattu Sah Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karnebhih Shrunuyama Devaah Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraah Sthirairangai Sastanoभिः Vyasema Devahitam Yadayuः Swasti na Indro Vriddhashravah Swasti na Pusha Visvavedaah Swasti nastarksho Arishtanemiः Swasti no Brihaspatirdadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. So that today's topic is something to do with respect for parents and elders. This topic came up in my mind. It actually got triggered much later. But when I recalled one incident, I was traveling in a taxi, some Ola or Uber, I don't know which one I booked, in Delhi only. And the driver was driving, possibly looking at my clothes. He started the conversation, and his question was, do you agree with this? I said, what? And he said, do you agree with this statement that the mother is the most respectful person on this earth? Now, I was in dilemma. I said yes and no both. I said it all depends. Then he started telling his own things, which I will cover when we proceed in this talk. So let us look at this topic, the traditional view. Traditionally, in India especially, they quote that passage from the Vedas, which is part of the Taittiriya Upanishad. Satyam vada dharmam chara matridevo bhava pitridevo bhava acharya devo bhava atithi devo bhava, etc., etc. So it's a convocation address. The students are attending the last lecture of the Guru in the Gurukulam. That's the setup. And that's a graduation ceremony. And he's giving the teacher is giving the parting message. And in that, these statements come. And this is widely used in India. And there are reasons. First, of course, is because it is something coming from the Vedas directly. Not only that, there are similar statements in other Smriti Granthas. Smriti Granthas are those which are not Vedas, but someone has authored those scriptures. So they enjoy a little lesser stature, but nevertheless, they are equally important, if not less. So all of them share this idea. Then traditionally, I won't go into the details. It is also accepted that Apta Vakya is a pramanam. Apta Vakya means statements coming from the mouth of knowledgeable people, people who have gained experience, who are considered wise, and what comes from their mouth is also considered as a pramanam. Pramanam means as a means of knowledge that cannot be ignored. If something has been said, one has to examine it and one has to reflect upon it. That is one thing. Second thing is, everything cannot be written. So, if from centuries onwards, the human knowledge has evolved or gained strength, it is because of the buildup of people of multiple generations. And since whatever one generation gains cannot be all written down and made available in written form. So at times, words said by the previous generation or the acharanam means the behavior, the way of functioning of the previous generation also is considered something as a means of knowledge to be looked into and to learn from it. So all this is possible if there is some respect towards the previous generation or the generation before that. Generations before that, it could be multiple generations living simultaneously. So one can one to be attentive to what they have said. Some respect, then an element of respect is expected. Otherwise, one cannot give enough attention to what they are saying. So this is one reason, one important reason why respect for elders and especially parents is given so much of emphasis. Then another reason is the sacrifices made by them. It is assumed that they have made sacrifices. Each generation makes a sacrifice to produce something which is enjoyed by the next generation. That was an assumption, and there is quite a bit of truth in it. So, and of course, parents do make sacrifices, and because of which children they benefit. So, for that reason too, the elders and parents deserve respect. Then another thing, this is a third important point. It, it was a self-regulated society. Even now in India and many of the South Asian countries and even undeveloped countries of other parts, even in Africa, etc., the administration or the governance of the government doesn't flow beyond a certain point. Governance of the government is visible in the urban areas. As we go into the rural and remote areas, it fades away. And really speaking, the government is only on papers. It is people have to defend their lives themselves, and they cannot claim life and liberty and big talks which are available in the courts in the cities, that is not available in remote villages. The panchayats and the sarpanches, they talk still what they used to talk 200 or 300 or 500 years back. Why? Because it was in monarchy, and monarchy was there. Now the democracy has come. Democracy has come, of course, but as I said, the traces of monarchy continues. So it used to be a self-regulated society. If people have to behave properly, it is because they are afraid of the elders. There is something that reverence for the elders and not to violate the words of the elders that regulated the younger generations. Okay, I hope I could make it clear what is in my mind. So it was a self-regulated society. Now gradually it is becoming a state-regulated society, which means a person's life is governed by what is written in the constitution and not what the elders say. And in the countries where self-regulation is less important and the state regulation is more important, they are considered developed countries, and people flock to those countries because then one need not um, be afraid of browbeating by the elders, because they one need not think how I should behave, what should I do, what I shouldn't do, what elders will think about me, etc. They are least bothered. What they are bothered is, am I going according to the constitution? If yes, fine, I don't care about anybody else. So that is what happens in a state regulated society. But in a self regulated society, things are different. People's view, elders' view become more important than what your constitution says. Okay. So all these are the all reasons which makes the traditional view so important, that respect your elders, respect your parents, etc. So now this is the traditional view. Now there are objections to the traditional view. And now I come back to the same story, my conversation with that driver. He said, how do you say, he was a male, of course. So how do you say mother is more respectful, to be respected more than the father? Do you know what the mothers are nowadays? They they don't want to even give birth to their children, the natural birth. They want cesarean. And I was really shocked. This is true. The trend of cesarean delivery is increasing leaps and bounds day by day. And one of the basic reason is, the other reason is also, of course, because cesarean cases help the hospitals make more money. But one of the important reasons is the mothers don't want to go through the pain, that labor pain, and then giving birth to a child through those pain. They just don't want it. That is one thing he said. Second thing he said, that she gives birth and then the child is reared partly by her, partly by her mother or her mother-in-law or some help, something. And that's how the early childhood is reared. And the father, right from birth till the children are settled, he was talking about himself. He has to work 10 hours, 12 hours a day to earn that money so that he can feed his wife and the children. So it's the father who is working more than the mother. Then why they should be giving more respect to the mother? That was his argument, his point. And he said, if just for myself, if I have to earn, I can run this taxi only 4 or 5 hours a day. But since I have to take care of my wife, my children, and their education, etc., I run it for 12 hours a day. Then only I earn that much. So who is sacrificing more? That was one point. Second point, he said, even then he said, he made one more point. And I was thinking, see, he's such a wise person. I mean, he has his own point. He said, why even mother and father are to be respected? Many a times the children are born because the parents were indulging in pleasure and it was by accident the children were born. So it is not the fault of the children that they were born. It was the fault of the parents because of which the children were born. So why the onus of respecting the parents is on the children? I'm not saying they should disrespect, but why they should respect? Now there was another point, of course, because in a traditional view, for giving a birth to child, there used to be something called garbhadhana samskara. So it was a formal ritual before a baby was conceived. And they used to follow rules, certain disciplines, certain types of food, and on a particular, with lot of prayers, on a particular day or night, whatever you want to call, the parents will come together to conceive the child. So it was such a regulated thing. And it was really a sacrifice. That was one thing. Second thing was, they never used to conceive a child so that the child becomes a support in their old age. That was not the purpose. Because of the ashrama dharma, after 50, near about that age, the person has to leave his and her house. So there used to be joint families, but not of multiple generations. They were of the similar generation, means cousins and brothers, etc. They will be living jointly because joint living has its own convenience. But it was not that multiple generations are living in the same house simultaneously? No, because the younger child would go to the Gurukulam at the age of 8, 9, 10, maximum 12. And when this child comes back from the Gurukulam, it's time, after a few years, it's time for the parents to depart. So um, it was a really a sacrifice. And because of this sacrifice, they did deserve that respect. But times have changed. Sacrifices are there, but they have got diluted. And because of that, do they need the same respect which the Vedas command us to give them? So this is one objection to the traditional view. Another one, which of course not the driver who said that, I myself thought about it and reflected upon it. The Vedas also say, Acharya Devo Bhava. Acharya means the teacher, the guru is as good as a God, Bhagwan, Deva. Now, I remember, and I saw this cartoon in one of the WhatsApp groups, and that message came to me. And that cartoon, I don't have it now, otherwise I would have shared. They are showing 1990 and 2020. In 1990s, if the child gets lesser marks in the school, the parents will scold the child. Why did you get this such less marks? In 2020, things are different. Instead of scolding the child, the parents are scolding the teacher. Why did you give less marks? So this is the shift. This has changed. The onus of the child getting lesser marks, earlier it used to be on parents and the child. Now it is on the teachers. So these are the shifts which have taken place. Now, if these shifts have taken place, then there has to be a shift in the concept of respect for parents, elders, and teachers. In one of the articles recently I read, in India, one out of four children is abused either sexually or definitely emotionally. I mean, somewhat related to sexual abuse. One out of four in India. That means 25% have experienced this exploitation once in their lifetime. And from whom? From the elders whom they respected or known people. Many times it is elders, but sometimes it may not be elders of the similar age, but whom they respected. So this is the reality. And I tell you, this reality was no different even 200 years back. Now that people are coming up and sharing their experiences, it is becoming more and more common. Earlier, it used to be a hush-hush thing, and honor of the family and this and that, which used to prevent people from reporting. But now it is quite common. So when this is the case, do the elders or the parents deserve respect? Or that much respect, let me put it this way, that much respect as much is claimed in the Vedas? We have to question that. You cannot have double standards. When it is your turn to give, when it is your duty, that time you become modern. But when you want to gain respect or command respect, actually control people, that time suddenly you become traditional. It is like one of the criminals who is in the jail. He was deported from Spain. So when he applied for reprieve, relief, relief in a sentence handed over to him, he used Indian laws in the Indian courts. And when the relief didn't come, he said, I am a citizen of that country, so the punishment of that country should apply only. Now, this is called double standard. When it is convenient for me to get relief, then I use this court. But when it doesn't come through, then I use the other court. So when it comes to real sacrifices in life, following dharma, satyam vada dharmam chara, that is spoken first. Those two sentences are ignored, and straight away they jump to Matridevo Bhava, Pitridevo. They don't even now go towards Acharya Devo Bhava. And Atithi Devo Bhava, you forget. Because the concept of Atithi anyway doesn't exist. Atithi means the one who doesn't have a Tithi. Tithi means a date, was unannounced arrival. It was common in India. I mean, even nowadays, I know in villages, and especially in the hilly regions, Uttarakhand, Himachal, and all, guests will appear suddenly at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And remember, now we have gas stoves. Earlier, they used to have those coal-fired and wood-fired stoves, whatever. And they will come, and then they have to ask, they have to be given food, offered food. So then you have to light the stove, prepare food, and it becomes midnight. So that was Atithi Devo Bhava. How many of us will tolerate such Atithis in the modern context? None. Hardly anyone. So only a portion of it I pick up because it is convenient to me. And then dharmam chara, satyam vada, follow dharma, speak the truth. That part I don't care much because times have changed. But then, since I am the mother, I am the father, I am the elder, you respect me. This is our tradition. That makes you a samskari Indian. That time the word samskara suddenly crops up. Now, what about your samskaras, my dear? If you follow samskaras halfway, but you want the next generation to follow full of it, how will it work? It doesn't work. And so, and it is commonly seen. And now, in the recent few years, I have found. How much time do I have? Yes, I do have time. Okay. There are so many ramifications. Earlier, divorce used to be something very rare. Now it is becoming more common. Then families living jointly, multiple generations. Say grandparents, parents, and children living in the same house. It is not very uncommon that the grandparents manipulate the grandchildren sometimes against the mother, because the father is their own son, so they won't manipulate against him. But in the patriarchal society, because the grandparents are the parents of the father, so it's a loaded, one-sided, lopsided, what I say, justice for the mother. Mother is left alone. They will pamper the grandchildren to attract towards themselves. And if the mother objects, then they will portray her as a villain. And I have seen these cases in some of the families very recently. And I've seen this in my childhood too, in my surroundings. Of course, I at that time I didn't know that it is a manipulation, but now I can understand that. So this is very common because they want to control. It's a power struggle. It's a politics within a home. And with all these politics, where are the samskaras and which respect are you talking of? And of course, many times it is the other way around also. The mothers will manipulate the children, pamper them against the father or the grandparents. I have seen even that. Grandparents would be telling, no, you should not be doing this, you should be doing this, etc., etc. And then they will be portrayed as villain because they are coming in on the way of the freedom of children. And that's how the mother gains power of the over the children and alienates them from the father or the grandparents. There is a terminology in psychology, parental alienation syndrome. You can type it on Google and in Wikipedia, you will find parental alienation syndrome. It is becoming very common. And especially when there are cases of divorce or a possibility or a potential divorce is impending, the first thing, the two things become very important. What about the assets, the wealth? Who will take away the wealth and who has to protect the wealth? And second thing comes is, which comes is the children. Who will take the custody of the children? And how that is decided? To whoever the child wants to go, that has to be proven in the court, and that parent will get the custody. So to get the custody, they will manipulate the child against the other parent and his or her family in such a way so that the custody is gained. So these are the common problems which are coming up. They used to be very rare in ancient times because it was a self-regulated society and each generation was regulated. A regulated generation used to regulate another generation. Now, in this fake samskara syndrome of modern times, where unregulated generation wants to control or regulate another generation. And that is where the problems arise. So this parental alienation syndrome, and then they will fight with their parents and in-laws for property, for so many things. But they want their children should not be fighting the same way with them. Now, if the children see this, do you think they will not do what they want to do? Of course they will. Then we blame the times have changed. Kali Yuga aa gaya hai. Kali Yuga has come. Everybody is doing what they want to do. It's shame on the times. So, whatever. They will blame everybody else except themselves. Of course, times have changed and exposure what exposure the children get, that has also changed. That does have effect. But what moral authority I have to impose those values upon my children, which I didn't follow as a child of my parent? I don't have that moral authority. But then I hide behind the sayings of the Vedas, and later on by the so-called spiritual teachers, because the spiritual teachers have to announce that parents are important, because it's the parents who attend the talks and they give dakshina. Dakshina means some donations and all. So, so the parental lobby has to be strengthened by declaring that you deserve more respect, and a samskari child is one who gives you respect. And respect becomes a corollary for control. It's not the respect born out of understanding, it's an imposed respect. And respect imposed through guilt and through multiple types of guilt. And they gang up together to dictate how the children should behave. And that leads to conflicts, that leads to rebellion, that leads to many kinds of frictions. And then they don't understand how to handle it, what to do, how times are changing, why you blame the times, you blame everybody, you blame everything except yourself. So that's why I thought this is one topic I should take up, because it is becoming an epidemic in India. I'm mostly concerned with India, so I'm talking about India, but I'm sure um, the India of say 2000 years back, the extended India also must be having the similar problem. If you go to Nepal, you go to Bangladesh, you go to Myanmar, uh, all those places, wherever there is a concept of joint family and respect for elders and all, whatever, these problems are bound to come. And just I'm asking one thing: follow your elders. If elders ask me, go and get me a bottle of whiskey, will I follow? Should I follow? Elder has to behave as an elder. Then I can follow that elder. If the elder wants to exploit me sexually, and it's not just the girls are exploited sexually, mind it, that's a wrong concept. Even boys are. Will I follow that elder? No, I won't. Then whom will what I should follow? I will follow what is right and wrong. And if the elders are following what is right and wrong, then I will follow the elders too. But just a blank statement, follow your elders, respect them and all, these are silly statements. I feel we need to relook into it. First, do I deserve to be called as an elder? Who deserves respect? Then only I can talk about respect your elders. Otherwise, I should only say respect what is right. First, learn what is right and respect what is right. So, with this, I stop here and we can have questions, doubts, whatever.
Thank you so
Something
much,
which I
sir.
couldn't make you understand.
Yeah,
So,
thank you so much, sir.
I am a traditional teacher minded. That doesn't mean I will parrot something which is traditional.
Thank you, Acharya ji, for sharing
Yeah,
your valuable insights on a very important topic. Abhay.
yeah.
Participants, if anyone has a question, please unmute yourself. You can raise the hand or put it up in the chat box.
Feel free. Sometimes the questions help me understand whether I was able to explain the things the way I wanted. Okay. So if no questions,
No, Acharya ji,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
while the participants are thinking of questions, let me start with one question, set the ball rolling. Uh,
Sure.
the traditional attitude has at least one effect. Even when the children do not genuinely respect the parents, sometimes there's a lot of hypocrisy that goes. Behind the scene, they may be quite cruel or even with the parents, but on the surface, when it comes to creating an image in front of others, they show as if they respect their parents a lot. How would
Right.
you look upon that?
How would I look upon that? Well, uh, if I see from the eyes of the parents, okay, from their side, unke pale se, okay, from their side, uh, that gives them some satisfaction. Whatever you carry in your head doesn't matter. Outside, if you display that you are respecting us, that uh, keeps our image in the society in a better shape. That means we have given you the right samskaras. So we are good people. And since we are good people, so we command respect from others. Okay, so this is from the parent side. From the children's side, again, it depends which age. Smaller age children, they will show respect either out of compulsion because they have to face the parents when they go back home. Okay, that could be one reason. Or if they are grown up children, then there may be an eye on the property or assets or something which they want to get. So they say, just by touching somebody's feet, if I get a check of 10 lakhs, I can touch 10 times. Why shouldn't I? In any case, if I am on a job, I have to touch feet of my boss. If I am in a business, then I have to touch feet of my customers. Touching feet, I mean, figuratively, need not be actually physically, but I have to please them. So, and even then, I won't get a check of 10 lakhs just like that. But here, straight away, I'm getting it. Why not do it? So, this is one reason when they feel differently, yet they outwardly they show this. That is one thing. Second thing is, again, it's the ecosystem. If they are in India, they need to show that there is a family unity and we are respectable samskari families, and that makes them that makes many things easy for them. Matrimonial alliances, that is one thing which makes which is made easy because of this public show. And of course, the credibility, and it can give better business opportunities, better jobs, and better image in the society. But uh, if they have been living in another society which which doesn't have so much value for all this, then they won't do it, and they will say, go to hell, what you want, whatever we want, you go, you do. So this is about it. This hypocrisy is a word which I was trying to avoid, but since you brought it up, so now I'm using it. We have to come out of this hypocrisy. we are getting into it. Why? Uh, because of double standards or multiple standards. That makes us hypocrite. So, respect is not for control. It is to make somebody else attentive. Maybe that is, one can use that as a tool. That is fine, but not to control somebody. Okay. Any more questions? Anyone?
Arunima, any questions in the chat?
Not yet, sir.
Well, it might be a shocking talk for many of them, possibly. So,
We have a
big,
question.
yeah, there's a question, is it?
Yeah, yeah, in the chat
Okay.
box.
Hmm.
Many thanks for the opportunity, Acharya Navneet. Do you consider true respect for elders a necessary preparation for being ready to assimilate the truth of the scriptures?
Well, which elders? If my elders are jihadis, I need not respect them, and I can still have understanding of the scriptures. Remember one thing, it just came to my mind, it just flashed just now. In the scriptures itself, what I am saying is embedded. We have a story of Nachiketa. I hope you have heard of it, at least some of you, Yamaraja and Nachiketa. Now, Nachiketa was a symbol of a person who wants to know scriptures or the truth of scriptures. May not be scriptures directly, but what is the truth of the scriptures? And he was born to a father who is portrayed in the story as someone who was too miserly. And Nachiketa saw this and he couldn't stop himself. And he provoked his father and pointed it to him that what you are doing is wrong. And this was a 5-year or 7-year-old child doing it. So, through this story, the scripture itself wants to say that if the elder is not doing the right thing, then just out of respect, you don't swallow everything. You may have to raise your voice, and still you are eligible to understand the truth of the scriptures. And Nachiketa, in the story, it finally he gets the knowledge from Yamaraja, the truth of the scriptures. So I hope this answers the question. Did it answer? Please ask him.
Marcelo? Yes,
Okay,
he
good.
says yes. Yeah.
Right.
Dr. Bijlani, would you like to share your views? We do not have any questions.
Okay. Thank you.
First, let me pay compliments to Acharya Navneet. And Arunima, while you introduced him, the introduction was a little too brief. Not many people may know that he started as an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur. So by qualification, he's an engineer. But then, as you know, we recently put also one of the videos in which he's having a conversation with me, and it brought out that his tendencies right since childhood were quite different from that of an average child. And he was one who questioned things, rebelled against conventions which he could not accept, and therefore, in a way, was quite a trouble for the elders. But at the same time, it was a trouble that he created out of his intellectual honesty and his genuine search for truth. And that's how it was not surprising that after finishing his engineering course, he was drawn to go and do a course on Vedanta at Arshvidya Gurukula, and then decided to devote all his life uh, to the cause that his guru wanted him to, that is looking after the next generation, particularly the underprivileged children, through an all India movement. And that is what he has dedicated himself to, uh, foregoing all the so called pleasures of the normal worldly life. Now, one of the things that you might have noticed, that his tendency to question things has still not disappeared. Uh, After studying all the scriptures, he has himself asked whether everything that is written in the scriptures, especially when we see only a part of the scriptures that suits us, is that really valid even today when times have changed? Of course, the credit goes to him for questioning, but the credit also goes to our tradition, the Hindu tradition, in which it is possible to question scriptures, unlike many other religious traditions where you cannot do it. Once it is the scripture, it's the last word, you cannot question it. So that is the beauty of the Hindu tradition. He has made use of that freedom and questioned some of the things which are there in the scriptures and questioned their relevance today's in the today's world. So that is one thing which is very creditable. And what he has said, in a way, is not new, because human nature has not really changed over thousands of years. And also, some of the deeper truths have also not changed. And one classic example, which many of you might have thought, was that of the Buddha, Lord Buddha, who uh, might have been expected normally to listen to his father and shoulder the responsibilities of the throne. But he thought that he had a lot more to give to the world, which he could do not by accepting the throne, but by leaving home and looking for the solution to old age, illness, and death, some of the major problems of worldly existence, and left. So, what was right for Buddha was not necessarily right for everybody. You can't say that, well, Buddha did it and therefore I can also abandon my parents. You can't use the logic that way. But all the same, this freedom was available and he made use of this freedom. And that is what he was made for. And he ended up doing a lot more for the world than he could have done by just accepting the throne and by doing what his father expected him to do. Where is this question about hypocrisy was also, because uh, we find that, in fact, sometimes the behavior with parents goes to an extent which no amount of irresponsible or questionable behavior of parents can really justify. Some of it, again, is not very new, and we find it is some of the stories by Premchand, might have read. But then it's not all fiction. That fiction is based on some realities. And recently I read a story of extreme cruelty to a mother by a young couple. Uh, the uh, cruelty, I mean, which cannot be justified by any standards, cruelty including physical abuse of their mother, who finally got so fed up that in spite of not knowing where she would go, she just left home. And of course, Providence took care of her and she got well rehabilitated by a stranger, stranger again, who was young and whom she adopted as her son. Uh, that's a story in Om Swami's book on kindness. Now, so these are things which are realities of life. But then, even such people sometimes, while doing that at home, might put on a face of being very nice to their parents when it comes to facing these strangers. In a way, what the parents are doing, what the children are doing, falls within the ambit of one major change that has taken place in this Indian society under the influence of westernization. Of course, the westernization is inevitable. As Sri Aurobindo has said, that uh, we have clashed with a different and a very powerful uh, movement in the world, and therefore that collision is sure to have an impact. But then the impact, as he would have liked, as Sri Aurobindo would have liked, would have been one of critical assimilation. That is, assimilate what suits you and what will preserve the nation's soul, and at the same time, which will enrich our own culture. But instead of critical assimilation, say assimilating values which were responsible for the European Renaissance, the spirit of inquiry, the freedom of thought, the urge to experiment, a sense of justice and fair play based on rationality. Now, these are some of the things which were the hallmark of the European Renaissance. We did not adopt these. We just tried to learn their language, copy their mannerism superficially, copy their dress, but we did not try to learn these some of the deeper values which were the hallmark of European Renaissance, which were in fact responsible for all the development in science and technology and the development of things like rationalistic humanism, which European Renaissance gave to the world. Now, that we did not care for. So, it was not a critical assimilation. It was the most uncritical and most convenient, most glamorous part that was assimilated. And the impact we have seen that India has not remained what India was. And at the same time, it has not even become what the West has become and what West became under the influence of European Renaissance. And because some solid foundations were there in that change, now, in fact, they have realized the limitations of rationality and are moving towards as Sri Aurobindo, in Sri Aurobindo's language, towards exploring the supra-rational realities. They are moving towards that, and that's why they are lapping up ancient Indian wisdom with such keen interest. So, uh, if once again, I mean, it's not that they took 400 years to overcome that fascination for rationality and move to the supra-rational truths. We don't have to take 400 years because those supra-rational truths are inherent in us. They are in our blood. We may take a much shorter time, but all the same, we have to understand this phenomenon if we have to go through that process of critical assimilation. That why did what they did over the last 400 years, and what happened to us as a result of the degeneration which started in India around 1,000 years ago, which was accelerated by slavery, and which we have not been able to overcome. And that is the reason why this process of uncritical acceptance of the most undesirable parts or most unnecessary and irrelevant and redundant parts of the Western culture has given us. So, so the major change, sort of, apart from dress and other things that has happened, is that which might have been the product of the Industrial Revolution in the West, is that we have started having a different set of values altogether. We have started valuing things as a society, things which can be counted and measured. Now, money can be counted. A position of a person can be seen in more concrete terms, but the mental peace that one gets, the change in the level of consciousness that one experiences, those are things which are intangible. They cannot be measured. Or to put it in very sort of simple language, from a society which had simple living and high thinking, we have moved to a society which has started valuing simple thinking and high living. High living means having all the good things of life, and no matter how, including money and property. As you said, property is one of the major sort of things which influences the behavior of children to their parents and brings in all that hypocrisy and everything, and so on. So the we started valuing that high living, and along with that, simple thinking. What is that simple thinking? That happiness resides in luxury. Happiness resides in the good, so-called good things of life, material objects, and to get those, we need money, and therefore, money and those things is what brings happiness. The fact that it does not bring is a repeated experience, is everybody's experience, but we refuse to learn from it because somehow we have been brainwashed in some way. We have got so conditioned to thinking that way, we continue to feel that maybe I'm not happy because I'm unlucky. Maybe I'm not happy because I still don't have enough of the material. I have not made enough of material progress. But we refuse to sort of uh, accept that, well, now that I have the experience of a certain amount of material satisfaction and progress and has not brought happiness, then let me look somewhere else that we are not necessarily looking at. So we need to look somewhere else where we may find it, and then only we can. So sort of beyond a point, there's no point just going on searching at the same place. So we have to look somewhere else. That is what is required. So it is because of what we have started valuing that both the parents and the children have become more concrete. We started valuing what is concrete and started forgetting what can give that intangible things like mental peace, which in turn comes from a rise in the level of consciousness, which in turn comes from unconditional love, which in turn comes from a different view of life, that is looking upon life which has been given, the human life which has been given to us, as an opportunity for spiritual progress, which can come only from giving what we have to those who need it. So the priority is giving, and the joy of giving itself is reward enough. So if the parents are giving something to the children, the reward of giving this and through that growing spiritually is their reward. They don't have to look for what the children will do in old age. And in the same way, the children can do it for their children, of course, but they can also do something for their parents. They can give what they have to give, but then not because they are expecting the parents to hand over their property to them, but because they do it again because uh, if you look at it in a traditional way, gratitude for the sacrifices they made, nothing wrong with it. But all the same, you can say that that was their duty. As in one of those dialogues I'm remembering in an English movie, I think, Guess Who is Coming for Dinner? It's an old film. Not many may have seen that. But in that, there is a black boy who has fallen in love with a white girl, and his father is sort of telling him, reminding him that, is this what I expected from you? All the sacrifices I made, I carried that heavy bag millions of hundreds of miles just to be able to support your education. Is that what I did it for? And what does that boy say? The boy says, well, you did it because you were supposed to. It was your duty, in the same way as I do it for my children. Now that is sort of the rationalistic way of looking at things. But then, looking at it from the spiritual angle, when the parents are doing it for their children, if they do it not as a responsibility because I'm supposed to, but if they do it as something which helps them give what they have to these children who are in front of them, and enjoy through that joy of giving and also their spiritual growth. And the same way, when the child grows up and does something for the parents, it is for the same reasons. Give what he has because he has that physical strength, maybe some physical resources, financial resources, which the parents now don't have. So he has what the parents need at that stage. He's giving that to those who need it and growing through that, growing in consciousness and experiencing the joy of giving. So if both parents and children do that, there is no problem. The problem comes only when the yardstick or the criteria for what gives us happiness change. And when those criteria become something concrete, materialistic, something which can be measured, and we forget the value of these intangible things, then we have all these problems. So that is, in fact, at the root of the problem. So problem is neither with the parents nor with the children. The problem is what the society as a whole has started valuing today. And with that, westernization might have contributed, but it would not have succeeded if we had indulged in the process of a more critical assimilation of what the contact with the West meant or the collision with the West meant, and at the same time made sure that we do not lose our own nation's soul in the process. So, with this bit of a rambling, which ended up being a little longer than I had thought, uh, I would once again thank you for looking at this issue in a dispassionate way, in a way that you were careful not to rub anyone on the wrong side, which is also very good in such topics. And at the same time, you sort of made use of that freedom which we have in our tradition to be able to question everything, question even the scriptures. Thank you once again, and we hope to have you again very soon.
Sure. Thank you. Hari.
Thank you, sir. Thank you again, Acharya for giving us your valuable time. I thank the participants for being with us today. We can close today's session with a moment of peaceful silence. Namaste.